Hi, everybody. This is Andrea Bierman for the Learning Bear podcast, and this is a continuation of the summer series that I'm doing. And today we're going to be talking about Water Olympics. And this isn't, squirt guns in the yard, which, don't get me wrong, that's fun. But this is actually learning and education. So it's a lot of fun. You probably already have all these supplies on hand, and the best part is yet to come. So stick around. Here are the supplies that you're going to need for this series of events. Now, I would like to say that if you decide you only want to do one or two of these events, that's 100% fine. Also, I know this list is kind of overwhelming, but I would recommend that this can be done over a series of days and not done all at once, so you're not dealing with a lot of mess. So I know this list seems overwhelming. So to start with, you need some measuring cups, preferably one with a spout. You need yarn and then a container to hold water. You can do this with different sizes of measuring cups to kind of show the really cool experiment that I'm going to show you in a second, or you can just stick with one. That's optional. Then for event one, you just need some sort of clear cup. It can be plastic or glass, and you need $2 and pennies. Of course, you can always experiment with, dimes or nickels or quarters, but please try to keep it all the same so that your results actually make sense, okay? Because if you did part pennies and part quarters, obviously the quarters are going to skew it a little bit. Event number two, you just need an eyedropper and a penny. Event number three, you need some stiff cardboard, which would be from a pizza box or something, or a diaper box. Scissors, soap chips, which you can just cut off a chunk from your soap in your bathroom, aluminum pan, which can be a disposable or one you actually use, so like a big roasting pan. If you have a really thick cookie sheet or maybe a big 9x13 or something, you could do that too. And then a stopwatch. Event 4, you need paper clips. I would recommend the plain metal ones, not ones that are have that plastic coating on them. It may not work as well. I haven't tested it, but I would expect them not to work well. You could definitely compare and contrast. Try ones that are just the metal and some that have that plastic coating and see which ones work better. Same goes for the fork. I would definitely recommend metal to start with. This event 4 is kind of difficult and plastic forks don't work as well, but you could try maybe a bamboo fork or chopsticks or a spoon. You can manipulate this any way you want, whatever you have on hand. You need a magnifying glass, but this is optional, so maybe I shouldn't have said need, but it is helpful to have a magnifying glass because you can see what's really going on, and it's really cool. Then you need some sort of clear cup or container. It can be like a Pyrex dish. That's a big dish, or you can do a clear drinking cup. It could be plastic or glass, whatever you have available. Again, make it as easy as possible. And then event 5, you're going to need a couple different brands of paper towels. I would imagine that toilet paper could probably work for this too, but the toilet paper would probably fall apart. So I would stick with paper towels on that one. And then you need either some tall glasses or a clear pitcher. Either one will work. You need tape, ruler, and scissors. I would also like to add, I have clear dry good containers like you're supposed to use for flour and sugar. I've kind of moved those all over to my teaching box, but if you have something like that, that works too. I've used it for that. Here's some terms to know that are really important for this lesson: cohesion, adhesion, and surface tension. Cohesion is when water molecules want to stick to each other, which contributes to something like surface tension, which you will see through these experiments. And then adhesion is when water wants to stick to something else. So you're going to see in a demonstration I'm going to do for you how the water is sticking to itself because it's flowing, which is cohesion, and it's adhesion because they're also sticking to a piece of yarn as they move down the length of the yarn. Surface tension is like when you fill your glass really full and there's that bubble, that rounded bubble. That's surface tension. All those molecules are trying to stick together. If you would like a really fun pop culture reference to surface tension, if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, when that big black ship is trying to come into the special city near the end, all of the gold ships bond together to try to hold it back, and they're forming this net that holds it back, and that's basically what water molecules are doing. They're connecting together, trying to keep all of their water molecule friends inside. And when the tension becomes too much and the water molecules can't hold on anymore, then they break apart, and that's what happens in the video. So you can find that clip online and see it. It's a perfect example of surface tension in pop culture. So before we get started with the actual events, there's this really great demonstration that I really like to do, and it's kind of mind-blowing. I kind of use that a little liberally, I think, on this. I'm probably exaggerating, but it is really cool. It demonstrates that adhesion and cohesion that I was mentioning, and it's kind of a magic trick. I would recommend practicing a little bit before you do it in front of your students. As you'll see in the demonstration, I kind of fumble a little bit. It's been a while since I've done it, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to do. So be prepared for a mind-blowing demonstration. Here's what you need for this demonstration. First, you need your measuring cup. Like I mentioned, I have just a generic Pyrex measuring cup, and you want that narrow spout, and then fill it up with water, however much water you want to use, and drop a string of yarn in it and let it sit for a little bit. Let it soak up that water. You might have to push it down in there to absorb the water. Then what you need is another container, like a glass cup or whatever container you want to use. That is where your water is going to end up. Okay? So you will take the piece of yarn and you will take one end and put it into your container where your water is going to end up. The other end you will hold on to as you pour the water out of the measuring cup. It's important that you hold on to it so that it's stable, okay? So then you'll lift the measuring cup up. You'll start to pour the water. You want to do it slowly. If you do it too fast, as you'll see me do, the water will get on the table or whatever your surface is. So you'll pour it slowly, and you can experiment with where you're pouring from. It can be kind of a lateral thing. It can be vertical, whatever. Try it out. Now, as I mentioned, this series of activities is great because you can stretch it over 5 days. There's 5 different events, and you can really build it up and have your kids compete against each other. Maybe they want to try an event over the next day. I would recommend putting some kind of post up about, like with your standings. You can use paper or marker board, chalkboard, whatever. And your children can compete to see who gets the most medals in the events. It's really fun to see the kids compete, and they actually really enjoy these events. And they're really simple. All of the activities require water, so you are going to need water for every activity in addition to the supplies that I mentioned earlier. All right, so event number 1 is pole vaulting. You're going to take a plastic or glass cup and fill it up to the rim. This is really, really important, or the experiment is not going to work. And I will show you some images after this slide to give you some reference. It's really important it's up to the rim, or your kids are going to find a way to cheat, trust me. So before they start, have them guess how many pennies they can add to the cup before it will spill over. Give your children $2 in pennies or something similar in another denomination of coins, and let them slowly add the pennies in one at a time until the water spills over. They should be counting each penny. Do not let them put in 5 pennies at a time or 10 pennies at a time. It's important that they do it one at a time. It will make a little bit of a mess because obviously the water is going to spill over. So I would recommend putting some sort of container underneath the cup so that it'll catch all the water. And then you want to tally your results and repeat as necessary. If they think they can do more, or they mess with it, or someone shook the table, whatever, let them do it as much as they want. Easy experiment. And this, again, is testing surface tension, which is all of those water molecules holding on to each other as long as they possibly can. Now here's a couple of images to show you what a glass could look like if it was full. I know this one in here, this first one is kind of hard to see the rim. So on the second one here, I have added in some rice grains to give it a little more dimension, so you can see that they're floating on top. It is filled all the way to the top. It's really, really important that you do that. Event number 2 is the balance beam, and again, you're testing cohesion and surface tension. You're going to get tired of hearing those words, I promise you. So you give them a penny or another coin. You can test this with as many coins as you want, and you give them an eyedropper and a cup of water. They're going to see how many drops of water that penny can hold before it spills off. Again, you want to ask them to guess ahead of time. We're going to test a hypothesis. So obviously you need a hypothesis to do that. So say 25 drops or 50 drops, whatever. Write that down. Then slowly, one drop at a time, put water on the penny. And it's very key that they do it slowly and one at a time, because if you do it too many at a time, it's like a rush of energy and the water molecules can't hold on to each other. So the slower you go and the more deliberate you are, the more drops you're going to be able to do. So it's really important. Again, test this with different size coins, quarters, pennies, dimes, nickels. If you have some tokens from some place, you can do that too. You could also try, a brand new coin versus an older coin, because there's a texture difference and maybe that would affect how many water drops can stay there. Again, the water will spill off of the coin, so I would put a plate or a towel or something underneath it to minimize the water going everywhere. Tally your results and repeat as often as you like. Dry off your coin in between, obviously, so you have a better hold. Event number 3 is sculling, and I'll be honest with you, this is my favorite activity of the 5. I probably should have put it towards the end, but in the natural order of things, it comes as number 3 in the book, so that's why it's number 3. So for this, and I will show you a picture at the end of this slide, you're going to cut a rough boat shape out of cardboard, and there will be a notch at the tail end, and that's where you'll put in the soap. You're going to cut off a chunk of soap. It doesn't need to be very big, and you're going to place it into the notch. You will put some water in your roasting pan or whatever your container is, and put your boat at one end of the pan and watch it race to the other end. Now, here's some important notes that you're going to need to take in consideration. First, don't put a whole bunch of water in, because you're going to have to replace water after 1 or 2 times. The soap molecules will leave a film on top of the water, and once the soap molecules have, done this after 1 or 2 times of your boat race, the boat won't go anywhere anymore. The surface area has been disrupted, and that reaction won't take place. So do not put a whole bunch of water in there. It's going to waste it. The second thing is I would recommend doing this outside, so it's easier for you to dump it, or at least close to like a sink or something. And the third thing is try to have some extra cardboard if you can. I mean, if you're doing this from a pizza box or something, you should have plenty of cardboard available to you. Let your students try this rough boat shape that I'm going to show you. This is kind of like the origin, but then let them experiment. I've had students make the notch for the soap right in the middle of the boat, have the same general shape, but instead of the notch at the end, put it in the middle, and they had crazy good results. I've had kids make it more narrow, make it bigger, have the notch go all the way up in the center. I mean, you can do it 100 different ways, and it's really, really fun for them. Again, you're going to need to have a lot of water, because the soap is going to mess up your water. You're going to have to dump it out. So be aware of that. But it is a lot of fun, and kids go crazy over this activity. As promised, here's the image of the suggested shape that you start with. It's kind of like an almond shape with the end cut off, and then there's that little notch, and that is where you want to put your soap. Okay? Again, it's great if you have more cardboard available that your kids can experiment and kind of make their own boat shape and see which one's better. But this is what they recommend starting with. Event number 4 is the backstroke, and there's a lot of variations on this one, so stay with me. You're going to need a clear cup of water so that you can see what's going on. Again, it can be plastic or it can be glass. You're going to want the water pretty high up in the cup. You don't want it to be too low because it makes it a lot harder. And this is already a kind of a difficult event, so any corners that you can cut to help yourself out, I would recommend in this one. So the goal is to try to suspend paper clips on the surface using a fork, and it's really cool. If you have the ability to have a magnifying glass or something that you can see the water pushing up the paper clip, it's really, really cool. So I recommend you can get a cheap magnifying glass for a little bit of nothing. Metal forks do work best, but you're more than welcome to try with different kinds of forks or different utensils. I've tried it with plastic forks and it didn't work very well at all. It was really frustrating. I think I've tried it with a spoon too, and it also wasn't very successful, but I would be interested in seeing if like chopsticks would work or bamboo utensils or something. That could be really interesting to see. I would recommend doing this ahead of time before showing it to your kids so you can kind of get the it's all in the wrist, as silly as that is to say. So I would test it out ahead of time to make sure you know how to do it so you can help your kids. Again, you just need cup, water, and paper clips and a fork. So it won't take you much to try it ahead of time. Track how many you can balance on the surface of the water, compete against each other. If you are doing some competing, I would try to maybe mark the cup somehow with some tape or a marker so you can make sure that the water's filled up the same level every time, just to kind of remove that variable. Just a word to the wise. The last event is the slalom. For this event, again, you're going to need a couple different types of paper towel. You're going to need a tall glass or clear plastic pitcher or cup, drinking glass, or like I mentioned, I use my flower container. Whatever you have on hand, or a vase. A vase would be a really good option too. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut 2 equal size and length pieces of 2 different types of paper towel. Then you're going to tape one end to a ruler, and you will place the ruler on top of the glass or pitcher. I actually use a pencil usually for this, not a ruler, but that's up to you. And you're going to pour in your water as close as you can to the bottom of the paper towel without completely soaking it. You want it to just meet the paper towel. You don't want the paper towel to dip an inch down into the water. That's not what this is. So then you can watch as the water becomes attracted to the paper towel, adhesion, it's going to travel up the paper towel, and you can see which brand is more absorbent and quicker. It's really fun to watch. And you can try this with different types. You can try it with bigger pieces or smaller pieces, see which one's bigger, and you can time it as well. And that's really what the fun part is. It's really fun to do, and the only problem with this one is you do have to have a couple different types of paper towel, which you may not have on hand. You could also experiment with different types of paper. If you had a colored paper versus a plain white paper or a lined paper or cardstock, same sort of thing, and then you wouldn't have to buy anything extra if that was a problem. That wraps up the Water Olympics for today. I hope you check out this activity in your home. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at learningbearpodcast@gmail.com. And again, if I didn't already shout out to Project Wet, this is their activity H2O Olympics. It's a lot of fun. Your kids will want to do it more than once, I promise you, especially those soap-powered boats. That one is always a winner. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Subscribe, share, save this, sponsor me if you can. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.